Today, the queen is going to be chased by a swarm of angry bees. Well, actually a swarm of angry minor pieces. We're going to look at a queen battling against the minor pieces. And most of today is going to be a queen versus two minor pieces. But occasionally, when you give away your queen, you get 3 bumblebees. And I would say 3 bumblebees can overwhelm a queen most of the time. Now, before we get started, you may think, FunMasterMike, you got a video on queen sacrifices. Now, my memory's bad. But it's not that bad. I did go back and I made sure that we have some new topics today, but you might want to go review the Queen Sacrifices video before you move on to today. Okay, we got some new exciting ideas. In fact, some of the most exciting attackers of all time are going to be featured today. Now, this is a game from the US Championship. White played e5 and black answered an attack with an attack. Oh no, white grabs the first bumblebee. Now, black has to capture the queen, otherwise be down material. White captured a second minor piece. White captures a third minor piece, and I already believe this position is easier for white to play. Now, black went pawn grabbing. We're going to move quickly. Black tried to grab another pawn. Now, white threatened the rook, and one common idea if you're the queen is to give back some of the material to reduce the pressure. So black ignored the threat on his rook, captured a pawn, but actually the bees were not interested in losing their stingers. White played knight to d5, and on the next move, rook to a3. The chase was on, and white went on to win this game. Moving on to our next example, this is actually similar to one of the traps that FunMasterMike played in the Queen Sacrifices video, but it's actually a well-known opening trap. You saw me in the Queen Sacrifices video play knight takes knight and give away my queen. Now here it's not quite as clear, because after bishop takes bishop to b5, you are not necessarily winning this queen. In my Queen Sacrifices video, this pawn was missing and black had to block with the queen. Here black can play c6, and then when you take, actually black is already threatened by checkmate, because something like pawn takes, queen here, pawn takes, promotion to queen is a mate, or even promotion to rook. You might also recognize that c7 followed by queen to d7, bishop takes queen is also mate. If you're this far into the king level videos, or the super king I should say, I'm sure you can see that. Now black can avoid all of that immediate devastation by giving a check, but after the knight blocks, this pawn is still going to create some deadly discovered attacks. So black castles, and then white calmly threatens the queen, plays a3. They've got a lot of bees swarming this queen. Bishop e3, tempos galore, and after rook takes, technically white only has 2 minor pieces for the queen, but they're so good and black is so underdeveloped that black did not even survive 7 more moves in this game. Moving on to our third example, it's another time that FunMasterMike got to use an idea from a Grandmaster game. Now, if you've done as I've told and you've reviewed the Queen Sacrifices video, you might remember that there's this guy named David Bronstein. Remember him? FunMasterMike's favorite chess player? Yeah. Well, he sacrificed his queen on the king's side in the King's Indian Defense Samish variation. And I copied his idea in several of my games. Well, guess what? Here, I copied Mikhail Tal's idea against the Samish, where he sacrifices his queen on the other side of the board. Absolutely amazing. So you could say I'm a copycat, but imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Now, how did I copy Tal's idea? Well, I had this position once, and my opponent played the discovered attack knight to d5. The queens are lined up. Now, you could play a very, very careful move like queen to d8 and guard the pawn, but that wouldn't make it into our video. Knight takes knight. Now, white does not have to accept the queen sacrifice here, but if white takes the knight, black actually gets a good position. But when white takes, black takes a second minor piece, and the c pawn is also falling. The rook obviously has to save itself, and after knight takes c4, black has 2 minor pieces and a pawn for the queen. And in fact, if white wants any hope for survival, white better start giving material back right away. After rook takes knight, pawn takes, now the b file is open though, so there's really no respite for white. And here is the way that Tal finished off this game. I'm going to move a little bit quickly because I just want to show you the conclusion to one of these games. He's obviously using that b file. He takes his dark squared bishop is a monster. It's probably worth, I don't know, 5, 6, could it be 7 points? I really don't know. And after queen to d2, now we have to get rid of this bishop at some point to reopen that b file. Now the bishop goes back because after all, if you play c4 right away, you would hang your 6 points or your 7 points or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so knight e2, now c4, and let's just sit back and let's just enjoy Mikhail Tal being Mikhail Tal. He's going to finish off this game with the help of those dark squares. Knight to the square a4, and if you take this knight, well, I got some news for you. I'm just going to take back, And then I'm going to be threatening moves like taking your knight on d4 and playing bishop checkmate. So yeah, that's not going to help. Okay, takes. I've already told you what the threat is. Knight to b3 trying to cover up. But now rook c3. Let's take that knight. Let's double up our rooks. Let's play rook check. Let's take. And here white resigned because after king to a2, you could promote to give mate. In fact, you could promote to bishop, or you could play rook to a1. But because promoting to bishop is maybe never, ever the right move, but except in this position, I have to show it to you. Promote to bishop mate. Okay, his opponent resigned before Tal could have that much fun. Okay, so we've looked at Bronstein in a previous video. You just saw Tal. Well, what about Garry Kasparov? He has to be included in the list of world's most famous attackers of all time. You probably see what's coming, because after all, we're sacrificing our queen today. He played knight on f takes e4. If you don't take the queen, you're just going to be down at least a pawn. So after takes and takes, now this poor queen is kind of dominated by a knight because the queen has to go to e1 to defend the bishop, and then Kasparov just takes. Now Kasparov has 2 minor pieces and a pawn for the queen, but white almost can't move. White would love to move this knight and discover attack this knight, but where to move it? If the knight goes back to b1, the problem is I'm going to take your bishop, and when you take back, I'm just going to play this little tickle, pawn to e4, and your rook is going to be completely trapped. And if you move your knight to this square, this one I'm going to show you, I'm just going to take, and then, well, I could just push anyway, right? And your rook is still hanging up here. That actually might be white's best idea anyway, is just giving away the rook for the dark squared bishop. But anyway, white decided to try to keep some of that material by playing rook c1, but then Kasparov just took this pawn over here, and his pieces are totally overwhelming white's, and Kasparov went on to win this game. Now, for our final example, I'm going to show you the best attacker that you've never heard of. Bronstein, Tal, Kasparov, you might know those guys, but there was this guy a long time ago. His name was Rashid Nezhmetdinov. I think I got the pronunciation right on that one. And he was a super creative player. Some of his moves are so complicated and so deep that I can't even explain them. And we're going to celebrate one of those moves here. He was white, and his opponent played the move bishop f6, and he shocked the entire world. They didn't have the internet back then, but if they did, he would have broken the internet. He played queen takes bishop, and after knight check, well, actually black was going to lose that knight anyway. After takes and takes, he shattered black's pawn structure. Black has no dark squared protection around the king. And we're just going to play a few more moves to celebrate how he won this game. After knight to d5, of course, knight takes is coming. After rook e6, bishop to d4 is coming. And I think everybody here can appreciate how awesome white's position is. So if you can give away your queen for 3 minor pieces, you should generally do it, unless the enemy queen has a lot of flexibility around the board. The hard part in chess is giving away your queen for 2 minor pieces and knowing when to do it. But if you want to be considered one of the best attackers of all time, you do have to look for this possibility when it comes up.